I ain't got no mates. I ain't got any. I've got people I know, and I've got people who I know better than others, and people who know me better than some other people know me. But I haven't really got no mates. I haven't got no friends. There ain't nobody that, like, when they're outside, they're like, oh yeah, I've got to write to John, or I've got to go visit John, or there's nobody like that. So when I look at that back to back, that's exactly what it is, back to back. There ain't no bond, there ain't nothing there. You ain't watching each other, all you're doing is watching out for yourself. It ain't a case of protecting each other, it's a case of you have to trust the person who's behind you so you know you ain't going to get whacked from there. It's not really protection, it's just lesser of two evils, I suppose. There ain't really no advice to give. There ain't nothing you can say, there ain't nothing that anybody can say that will stop you doing what you want to do. There's nothing. The only person who can make you stop it is yourself. Because when you're there and when you're in that state, it's all or nothing. It's not until afterwards when you look back at it that you think to yourself, shit, if I'd have done this or done that, it would have been a bit different.
Okay, if you look over there, this is my first time in prison. I'm very depressed, feeling suicidal. Part of me is begging not to do it. Pleading posture is it's a feeling I felt at the same time as depression, and it's mainly me pleading with myself not to do it. Mainly pleading that things will get better and things ain't always going to be this way. And the other part of me is hope, a bit of hope, which came from a letter from a member of my family, my father. So that's how I felt my first 2 days in prison when I was 14 years old. I just hope that one of you realise that it ain't clever and there's nothing funny about getting into trouble and coming to a place like this. It's not a place for children, it's not a place for kids, it's not even a place for adults. Well, temptation is a life destroyer. You've got to weigh up what could happen. In my situation, I took that car. Anything could have happened. That could have given me a life sentence. Imagine I'd have killed 4 or 5 people. So it's all about choices in my eyes. The main thing I would say is think before you do. Think of the consequences to the people that you could hurt. I never thought of it before I jumped into that car. And look where I am now.
This sculpture is representing my mother and my father. My mother's got her back to me because I feel she's always rejected me and has never really shown any love towards me. The other person is my dad, with his arm out to me, reaching out to me, trying to help me as much as he can. Because my mum never really shown that love, I wanted to try and get it. So I tried to do well with things, but that didn't work. So I thought, okay, I'll start to do crime and stuff, because then she had to come down to the police station to come and really bail me out and everything, because I was too young to be there on my own. So in my eyes, that was the only way I could get her to be with me and no one else, because my dad would be working at the time, so she had to come all the time. So I started to realise the only way that I could get her to be there with me was to do bad things, because whenever I did anything good, she didn't care, she didn't say well done, she didn't praise me. I can't even remember if she ever hugged me. So my dad tried to help me and obviously get me to go on the right path and to work and stuff like that. And that's when they all pushed me into the army. And I joined there, and I spent 6 months in there, and I suppose if I'd have stayed for another 3 more weeks, I would have passed out. I could be living a completely different life. But I turned 18, walked out, and walked straight into prison, basically. And then my dad started to realise that the only thing he could do is keep me safe from what I was doing. He tried to protect me, and he knew he couldn't change me. He knew I wasn't going to listen. He'd been doing it all his life, and I wasn't listening to any of it. So instead, he tried to keep me safe, because the way I was living and the things I was getting into, some of it was quite dangerous. I wouldn't like anyone to end up in the kind of place I am. So that's why I want to try and get my message across to you people out there, because this isn't, jail's not a big thing. It's not clever at all. It's not clever one little bit. What I'm doing now is shaping my whole life. When I get out, I try and get a job. This is going to have a big effect on everything. So I wouldn't recommend this to anyone. Never.
Right, now you might be thinking at the moment, what do these three images represent? These three images represent me as a child. To the left, you'll see one image of me smiling. To the right, you'll see an image of me very happy. But when you look at the middle image, you'll see me as I really was, as a 12-year-old child. Those are the three images that I portrayed to my parents. The two images at the back, more so, because I really wanted to hide the fact of how I was really feeling. The center image, lonely, felt alone, felt unloved. I came from a middle-class family, quite successful. I was brought up. I was basically given everything except the most important thing I considered. Now looking back, that was love. Those three images, well, as I look back on my childhood, the two far ones are just pretense. The images I showed to my parents to basically tell them I was all right, simply because I couldn't communicate. I was looking for something else. Something else I tried very hard to get from them but wasn't able. So I did well in school, passed all my exams, got sponsored, went to civil engineering college. I ended up working for the company that my father worked for all his life and became his boss. And at that point, I thought, I'm successful, I've done it all, surely I could feel I'm going to feel something from him. But in fact, it worked in the reverse. He was infuriated that he had worked in the firm all his life, and here I was, coming and actually being his boss. So the relationship just turned bad. And looking back, I think perhaps subconsciously, that's why I started committing crime, to say, I wanted to get back at my dad for not showing me the love that I craved. My last message to any child out there who's seeking love from their parents and who isn't getting it, don't bottle it up. Don't keep it in. Don't let it change you as an individual. Don't let it cause you any pain. Talk to someone about it. Be open. Ask for help. And the right person will send you in the right direction.
Okay, this sculpt represents me at a time in my life. Representations of a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration, fear, hiding, trying to protect myself, and then also complete silence. The confusion is, this is supposed to be my parents that's supposed to protect and love me, do you know what I mean? But all the time I'm getting beaten, and I don't know whether I'm doing right from wrong. Do you know what I mean? And then there's another image where because after a while I just thought, well, if I don't say anything, I ain't gonna get into fucking trouble. So I didn't say much, so it's just complete silence. To put an age on it, would be coming quite early, maybe from 6 onwards until until I was 12, at least. From there, I don't know. My reason for showing you this is to try and give you some type of me that I know is inside your wall. I think it takes a tremendous amount of courage to be able to reach out and ask for help and talk to people. Even now to this day, I struggle on a daily basis to be able to express how I'm feeling and actually ask for help. But making that first step was a choice that I really wish I would have done many, many years ago. We will go through this many, many times, but we won't talk about it. We will just keep hold of it and bottle it up, because to show these types of emotions sometimes is a weakness. And we've been learned and we've been shown not to show weaknesses, especially in boys as well as women. you know, but especially in my life and my growing up, it was a big weakness to show any type of weakness, vulnerability, tears were not allowed. I wouldn't say if you don't do this, bottling up all these problems growing up over a course of time, it will affect the decisions you make in life, the choices that are given you. It will attract you to other paths that will lead you the wrong way. You might end up in prison, you might end up in hospital, you might end up dead if you're lucky, or you might go through the rest of your life in and out of these places, which I've done from a very young age, and I'm now 40 years old. I'm not proud of the fact either.
Yeah, I remember one particular night, I must have been about 16, just going on 17, and we was already in a little gang, a little crew, and there was one night we was all out in St. Paul's on Grosvenor Road. It must have been about 2, 3 in the morning, and back then it was just like, we was just getting into the drug scene, and there was crack cocaine was just come on the scene, so everybody was sort of like experimenting and whatnot, and we was smoking basically. So there was one particular drug dealer we was going to, who we kept going back to, and we'd give him money and he would disappear, and he would do that all the time. So one of us decided to follow him. So they followed him, he came back and said, oh, I know where he's going. He's going into some, like, it's a lockup, flat, become lockup thing, cage. Going in there, coming out, and with the drugs. So anyhow, this went on right for the night into the early hours of the morning, and the drug dealer decides that's enough, enough's enough. He's done his shift, and he shot off home. And eventually, I went home. And it must have been about sometime in the evening. I was at my mum's house up in Orfield, and when there was a big bang on the door, banging. So I went and answered the door, and there's a friend of mine. The guy, my friend, is telling me, oh, you need to come back down there because there's a situation going on down there and your name's being called. The next thing you know, we're down in St. Paul's, going into Burnell Drive. Going into Burnell Drive, I noticed straight away there was a crowd of like 30 odd people. I thought, hey. So anyhow, we got out of the car, and we've gone over to the lockup, and like, as soon as he opened the door and I stepped in, it's like, it's not very bright in there, but there's a light on in there. And the first thing I noticed when I went in there was my mate. He's hanging from a beam by a noose, which is around his neck, with his hands tied behind his back, and he's balancing by his tiptoes on a breeze block. It's like wobbling, yeah? So then I just knew, oh, here we go. And he comes over to me, and he tells G to get up. So he stands up, and he stands in between us, and he pulls out a butterfly knife. And I did honestly have flashes of like, oh, this is where, well, obviously, this is where my life ends, basically, because I didn't know what he was going to do with it. Well, sometimes it takes a wake-up call for people to realize they are on the wrong path. And until you get that wake-up call, you're going to just plod along on that path. And sooner or later, something will, I don't know, confront you. Yeah, and that's when more likely it'd be better off if the first time you do get into a situation, that it is, how can I put it, something very dramatic. And it do wake you up. Because if it ain't dramatic enough, you might think, well, that wasn't too bad, and just plod on again. And you go on and on until like something do really happen, and it's too late. I could sit here and dictate to people who's watching this, because I've done it, I've seen it, I've had it, and I'm here to prove it. So at the end of the day, you come into a situation like what I was in earlier, what I explained to you earlier, and you make that decision. Just like you got black, you got white. It's as simple as that. There ain't no in-betweens. You don't decide to think, well, I'm going to do this on a part-time basis. It just doesn't happen. You know what I mean? You either just say to yourself, you know what, enough is enough. I'm knocking this load of friends on the head. I'm knocking that area on there, that community and whatever, and just go on your own and do it, right? And later on in life, that's when you realise you made the right decision. There's no in-betweens.
So you think you're a bad man? A thug's life can be a mug's life, that's for sure.
Whoa. Now what you've got to decide. Do you want to stay with your family, or do you want to come and join mine?
Do you really want to live like this?
Don't waste your life. Believe me, you would not like it in here.
Would you want to change places with me?
This. You don't want this.
My name's Lizzie. I'm a partner of John. We've been together 9.5 years. He's just got a life sentence, which means he's got to serve a minimum of 6 years. He's